Welcome. As you become the captain of a Caribbean pirate ship sailing through the legendary golden age of piracy. Now, find that perfect spot to settle in. Let your shoulders drop from whatever tasks they were holding up today, and maybe pull a blanket a little higher. Take a slow, deep breath and just let the day's hustle drift away on the exhale. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it in your corner of the world? Is it actually bedtime? Or are you just getting a very early start on tomorrow's list of perfectly reasonable demands? If you enjoy these quiet journeys, a simple follow or subscribe helps other weary travelers find this harbor too. And now, it is time for us to find our own way to the docks. The year is 1718. The waterfront buzzes with the low murmur of tired merchants and the off-key singing of sailors stumbling from a tavern. You stand on the deck of your new command, the brigantine Sea Serpent, feeling the gentle rock of the tide beneath your feet. Your crew is aboard, a rough collection of hopefuls and runaways, and their eyes are all on you. Your hands rest on the ship's wheel, the wood worn smooth in some places and rough with a crust of dried salt in others. Each turn sends a faint tremor up your arms, a feeling that connects you directly to the living vessel beneath your feet. The constant low groan of the brigantine's timbers is a familiar sound, the rhythm of the sea serpent breathing as it pushes through the endless blue water. Above, the canvas sails catch the wind with a sharp, percussive snap, a sound like a whip cracking that momentarily cuts through the low murmur of the crew's voices on the main deck. You are the captain, a title earned just days ago in a clash of steel and shouting that ended with the previous captain no longer being a problem. The position is yours, but the respect that should come with it feels thin and fragile, like a sailcloth worn by too many storms. From this vantage point on the quarterdeck, a raised platform at the back of the ship, you see every man. They are a mix of weathered sailors with faces like cracked leather and young men whose eyes still hold a spark of foolish hope. They move with purpose, coiling ropes and swabbing decks, but their glances linger on you a moment too long. They are measuring you, weighing your every breath. Your first mate, a man whose scarred face tells more tales than any tavern storyteller, stands near the railing. He catches your eye and gives a slow, deliberate nod, a small island of support in a sea of uncertainty. However, on the other side of the deck, the quartermaster watches you with a different look. His gaze is sharp, calculating, a constant reminder that he was elected by the men to guard their interests and, by extension, to guard them from a poor captain. This reality of your command means that every action is a test. The quartermaster, more than anyone, embodies the ongoing debate on any pirate vessel. The captain steers the ship and leads in battle, but the quartermaster handles the loot and can challenge the captain on behalf of the crew. His presence is a physical representation of the fact that your authority is a loan, not a gift. As if summoned by your thoughts, he approaches, his boots making a heavy, solid sound on the planks. He stops a few feet away, followed by the ship's navigator, who carries 2 rolled charts under his arm. The murmur from the crew below quiets slightly, their attention now a tangible pressure on your shoulders. They know what this meeting means. Their stomachs have been grumbling for days, a more potent threat to your leadership than any Navy vessel. The quartermaster speaks first, his voice as rough as a barnacled hull. The men are thirsty, Captain, and the biscuit is getting friendly with the weevils. He isn't being disrespectful, merely stating a fact, but it carries the weight of a formal complaint. The navigator, a quiet man who trusts his maps more than people, steps forward and unrolls the first chart on the small table near the helm. He points a finger at a small circled island. Tortuga, he says. We can be there in 3 days. The springs are reliable and the port is friendly. We can resupply quickly. Your eyes scan the chart. It's the safe path, the known quantity. A part of you feels a pull toward this choice. It's a simple solution that would fill the water barrels, quiet the crew's complaints, and avoid any immediate trouble. It is the sensible, easy move. Then, the navigator unrolls the second chart. This one shows a longer, more winding route that arcs south, crossing a wide channel of open water. Or, he continues, his finger tracing the path, we could make for this cove. The Spanish call it escondido, the hidden place. The fishing is better, the water is cleaner, and there are fruit trees. It will take us a week, perhaps longer. He pauses, and then taps a section of the route marked with a faint X. But it takes us directly across the Spanish trade lane out of Cartagena. Their patrols are frequent. He says this last part without emotion, but the words hang in the space between you. The quartermaster's eyes gleam with a mixture of greed and caution, reflecting the desires of the crew. The first mate, ever the pragmatist, subtly shakes his head, his opinion clear without a word spoken. The choice is laid bare before you, as clear as the 2 maps on the table. Tortuga is safety and speed. Escondido is risk and reward. One path settles your crew's immediate needs and cements your reputation as a careful, perhaps even timid captain. The other path exposes everyone to the cannons of a Spanish warship, but promises better provisions and, more importantly, a chance at a prize. Taking a prize on your first real voyage would transform the crew's watchful silence into roaring approval. Showing such boldness now could win the respect of the most hardened fighters aboard, the men who truly decide if a captain is worthy. You can almost feel the cold steel of a Spanish cannonball in the pit of your stomach, a chilling weight that balances against the crew's hunger and your own shaky authority. You find yourself torn. Your mind races through the possibilities. A quick trip to Tortuga means sharing the port with other, more established captains who might look down on you and your new command. It's the path of a follower, not a leader. Yet the thought of leading this crew, your crew, into an ambush on your first command sends a wave of cold dread through you. To be seen as a coward is a death sentence for a captain, but leading your men to their deaths is a far greater sin. You look from the scarred, steady face of your first mate to the sharp, expectant eyes of the quartermaster. Their expressions represent the 2 halves of your own mind, caution against ambition. You take a deep breath, the salty tang of the sea, doing little to calm the frantic beating of your heart. You look down at the men on the deck. You see some of them have carved their initials or small symbols into the wooden railing. a quirky custom among sailors to leave a mark on the ship that is their whole world. These aren't just names on a crew roster. They are individuals who have placed their lives in your hands, all based on a few minutes of bloody violence. They trust you to make them rich, but more than that, they trust you to keep them alive. Your decision will be the first entry in the story of your captaincy, the first line of the sea shanty they will one day sing about you. After a long moment that stretches taut like a straining anchor line, you make your choice. You choose not the path of simple safety, but the one that promises more. A captain's reputation, you realize, is not built in safe harbors. It is forged in danger. You tap the second chart with a firm, decisive finger. Set a course for Escondido, you command. Your voice is louder and steadier than you expected it to be. And have the lookouts keep a sharp eye. We'll welcome any Spanish company we find along the way. A slow smile spreads across the quartermaster's face, and you hear a low but appreciative murmur ripple through the crew below. The navigator nods, rolling up the charts without another word. The first mate holds your gaze for a second, his expression unreadable, before turning to bellow the orders to the helmsman and the sail trimmers. The ship begins a slow, graceful turn, the creak of the hull changing its rhythm as it finds a new heading to the south. Men scramble up the rigging with a renewed energy, their movements quick and sure. They have their answer. You are not a cautious captain. You are a gambler, and you have just bet all their lives on your first hand. As the ship settles on its new course, you grip the wheel again. The sun warms the wood under your palms, a stark contrast to the cold knot of apprehension in your gut. You squint toward the southern horizon, a vast, empty expanse of water that now holds both the promise of full bellies and the threat of total destruction. The low murmur of the crew has changed. It is no longer uncertain or watchful. Now it is a hum of anticipation. They are sharpening cutlasses, checking the priming on their pistols, and talking in low, excited voices. They are preparing for a hunt. The weight of your first true command, a decision made not with a sword, but with a map, settles into your bones. It feels heavier than any gold, more solid than the deck beneath you, a new kind of anchor holding you to this life you have chosen. The days since your first command have settled into a rhythm, a steady pulse dictated by the ship's motion against the sea. Depending on the path you chose, that rhythm is different. Had you taken the safer route, the mood would be one of simmering impatience. The crew's grumbles a constant low undertone to the creak of the hull. But you chose the riskier Spanish patrol lane, and the tension that results is a sharp, watchful thing. Men move with a quieter purpose, their hands never far from their weapons, their eyes constantly scanning the empty horizon. A routine has formed, yes, but it is the routine of hunters moving through dangerous territory, not of sailors on a simple voyage. Every snap of canvas in the wind makes heads turn, and the silence between watches feels heavier than it should. This constant watchfulness means the cry from the crow's nest comes as both a shock and a release. Sail ho!
The words slice through the quiet morning, and instantly the deck is a hive of activity. Men drop what they are doing, scrambling for a better view. You lift your spyglass, the brass cool against your skin, and bring the distant shape into focus. It's a merchant vessel, no doubt. It rides low and heavy in the water. Its sails full and ponderous. The profile of a ship built for cargo, not for speed. The sunlight glares off the water's surface, a brilliant, painful sheet of light that makes you squint, forcing you to shield your eyes with a free hand to make out the English colors it flies. The ship seems to be a fat, slow prize, delivered by fate directly into your path.
Your first mate appears at your elbow, his scarred face unreadable as he studies the vessel. He doesn't need a spyglass. His eyes are narrowed to slits, reading the language of the sea with an ease you still strive for. "She's heavy, Captain," he says, his voice a low rumble. "But she's flying English colors. Could be a Q ship." He explains the term for the younger crew within earshot. A Royal Navy warship disguised as an easy target. Its cannon ports hidden behind false walls, waiting to lure pirates into a deadly trap. The possibility sends a prickle of unease down your spine. His caution is a necessary anchor, a reminder that the most tempting fruit can often hold the most potent poison. However, on the other side of the deck, your quartermaster is already gauging the crew's reaction. He was elected by them, and he understands their desires perfectly. A low hum of excitement is spreading through the men, a shared energy of hungry anticipation. They see their first chance at real plunder under your command. The quartermaster catches your eye and gives a slight encouraging nod toward the merchant. His expression is clear. The men are restless. They need this. A victory here, an easy prize to fill their pockets and the ship's hold, would cement their loyalty to you far more effectively than any speech or show of discipline ever could. He is not just advising you, he is channeling the collective will of every sailor aboard. The promise of gold is a powerful current, pulling you toward the chase. You can almost feel the weight of silver in your hands, hear the cheers of a crew celebrating their first victory with you at the helm. Taking this ship would erase any lingering doubts about your right to stand on this quarterdeck. It would turn a collection of wary individuals into your crew, bound by shared success. The thought is so tempting, it makes your mouth water, a stark contrast to the dry, gritty texture of the hardtack biscuit you pull from your pocket and begin to chew. This is the food of pirates, a simple, tasteless cracker meant only for survival, a constant reminder of the poverty you are all trying to escape. Yet, the first mate's warning lingers. The image of those hidden cannon ports swinging open, of a single volley of cannonballs turning your swift sea serpent into a floating wreck, sends a cold dread through you. To be a captain is to be responsible for every life on this vessel. To lead them into a blatant trap would not just be a failure, it would be a betrayal. You find yourself torn, caught between the crew's burning hunger for a prize and your own deep-seated instinct for survival. The two forces pull at you with equal strength, a silent war being waged within your own mind as the entire crew waits for your command. Is it better to be seen as a coward or a fool? That is the question that circles in your thoughts. A coward might be deposed, his command given to another. But a fool would lead them all to the bottom of the sea or to a hangman's noose. The men on the deck see a prize. Your first mate sees a threat. You, standing at the ship's wheel with the fate of everyone aboard resting in your hands, must see the truth. You lower your spyglass. The distant ship now just a shape on the horizon, a question mark floating on the glittering water. The salty mist has settled on your lips, and you lick them, the taste of the sea, a sharp, familiar anchor in this moment of uncertainty. A part of you recoils from the risk, a sensible voice that urges you to continue on your course, to find provisions and water as planned. It argues that survival is the first victory, and that other prizes will come. Yet another part of you, the part that took this command in the first place, knows that reputation is everything. Boldness is the currency of this life. A captain who shies away from a fight, no matter how sensible the reason, will quickly lose the respect of the men who follow them. Their trust in you is a fragile thing, newly won and easily broken. You look from the hopeful, hungry faces of your crew to the grim, cautious expression of your first mate. Their competing expectations are a physical weight upon your shoulders. You think of the empty barrels in the hold, the grumbling about short rations. Then you think of the deafening roar of a full broadside, the splintering of wood, the screams of men. The bland taste of the hardtack in your mouth suddenly feels like the taste of failure, of a life spent scraping by. The promise of the prize, even a dangerous one, tastes like freedom. After a final, agonizing moment of internal debate, the path forward becomes clear. You make it your decision. You turn to the helmsman, your voice steady and clear, cutting through the tense silence on the deck. You give the order, and the man at the wheel repeats it with a sharp grin, spinning the great wheel. The ship begins to turn, its bow swinging toward the distant merchant. A roar of approval goes up from the crew, a wave of sound that washes over the deck and solidifies your command. The chase has begun, for better or worse. As the sea serpent picks up speed, slicing through the waves, you feel the ship come alive beneath your feet. The tension of waiting has been replaced by the exhilarating focus of the hunt. Every man moves with a new energy, preparing the cannons, sharpening their blades. Their earlier watchfulness now honed to a deadly point. You have chosen action over caution, and in doing so, you have answered the silent question in your crew's eyes. This single choice has already begun to define the kind of captain you are, and you find yourself shaped by the simple act of setting a new course toward an uncertain fate. The chaotic shouts of victory echo across the water between your ship, the Sea Serpent, and the wallowing merchant vessel you now command. Your decision to attack, a risk that had your heart pounding in your chest, has paid off handsomely. Now, standing on the captured deck, you watch your crew move with a feverish energy. Their initial doubts about your leadership burned away by the heat of combat and the promise of plunder. The sharp, acrid smell of spent gunpowder still hangs in the humid air, making your nostrils twitch. It is a harsh scent, but today it smells like success. A nearby barrel of rum has been smashed open, its contents mixing with seawater in the scuppers, and the sweet, heavy aroma of it seems to fuel the crew's celebration. Their laughter is a loud, ragged sound as they haul crates and chests from the merchant's hold into the daylight. One of your men, a giant with a tangled black beard, drapes a bolt of shimmering blue silk over his shoulders like a king's robe, only to trip over it moments later to the delight of his mates. Because of your bold choice, their bellies might be low on food, but their spirits are soaring. This victory has bought you more than goods. It has bought you their belief. Your quartermaster, a man whose eyes miss nothing, catches your gaze and gives a short, satisfied nod. He is the crew's voice, and for now, that voice is happy. This feeling of success, however, is a fragile thing, and you know it can be shattered as easily as a rum barrel. As the initial frenzy calms, the true nature of the prize becomes clear. Beyond the silks and silver trinkets, there are practical treasures. Your first mate runs a hand over a stack of tightly rolled sailcloth, his expression serious. Nearby, sturdy timbers, perfect for replacing the mast section that was splintered by a lucky cannonball, are piled high. He also points out a small, secure chest filled with medical supplies, jars of quinine for fevers, and rolls of clean bandages, things more valuable than gold when you are weeks from any port. He looks from the vital supplies to the celebrating crew, and you see the worry etched into the scars on his face. This moment of triumph, you realize, is giving way to a new kind of challenge. The quartermaster approaches you, his boots making a heavy sound on the wooden deck. He gestures toward a smashed crate from which the heady scent of cloves and cinnamon now drifts, a smell so rich it feels like you can taste it. "Captain," he begins, his voice loud enough for the nearby crew to hear, "these spices and silks will fetch a fortune in port. We should load the valuables. The crew has earned their share." A cheer goes up from the men who are listening. They see the immediate profit, the coins that will fill their pockets and buy them ale and companionship. Their focus is on the short-term reward, a natural thing for men who live such uncertain lives. For them, tomorrow is a distant country they may never visit. However, before you can respond, your first mate steps quietly to your side. "A full purse is no good at the bottom of the sea," he murmurs, his voice a low counterpoint to the crew's excitement. He points with his chin toward the sea serpent, where you can see the damage from the fight more clearly. "Our mainmast is wounded. We need that timber. We took a tear in the mainsail. That sailcloth is essential. We need these things before we can properly careen the ship." He explains that careening, the vital process of beaching the hull to scrape it clean of speed-killing barnacles and ship-eating worms, can't be done safely if you're not prepared for trouble. His logic is a cold splash of seawater on the crew's hot-blooded celebration. You find yourself standing at a new kind of crossroads, the division of plunder proving to be as difficult in navigation as any hidden reef. Part of you wants to give in to the crew's demands. A happy crew is a loyal crew, and the sight of them celebrating your victory is a powerful tonic. The quartermaster is simply upholding the pirate code, which promises every man his fair share of the plunder. Denying them that feels like a betrayal of the very freedom you all fight for. Yet, the first mate's words are a heavy weight in your gut. He speaks not of wealth, but of survival. His concerns are for the ship, the vessel that is your only home, your greatest weapon, and your one chance of escape.
The two paths are clear. You can lead by satisfying their immediate desires, filling their pockets and earning their cheers while leaving your ship vulnerable. Or you can lead by providing for their long-term needs, ensuring the sea serpent is strong and swift, even if it means earning their grumbles and resentful glares. You watch a man clumsily try to juggle 3 silver goblets, his face alight with joy, and contrast it with the image of your ship struggling in a sudden squall, its mast cracking. The decision rests on whether you are a captain for the moment or a captain for the voyage ahead. After a moment of silence that seems to stretch on forever, you raise your hand. The crew's noise subsides, their eyes turning to you. The first mate is right, you state, your voice carrying across the deck. A low murmur of disappointment ripples through the men. The sea serpent is our home and our lifeblood. Her needs come first. You let that sink in before continuing. We will take the timber, the sailcloth, and the medicines. They will be logged as the ship's share to repair and strengthen her for the fights to come. You then turn to the quartermaster. Once the ship's portion is secured, you will oversee the fair division of every valuable that remains. Every man will get his due, as promised in our articles. This compromise is not what the most eager of the crew wanted to hear, but it is grounded in unshakable logic. The quartermaster, though his expression is grim, cannot argue. The pirate articles, the rules you all live by, always allow for the ship itself to get a share for repairs and upkeep. By framing it this way, you have followed the code while imposing your will. He gives a stiff nod and begins shouting orders, his voice now directing the men to move the practical supplies first. The sounds of celebration die down, replaced by the thud of timber and the grunt of hard labor.
The mood has shifted. The wild joy is gone, replaced by a sullen, businesslike focus. The men work, but their movements are heavier, their jokes fewer. You can feel their disappointment, a quiet current of resentment that you will have to navigate in the coming days. They are pirates, and the promise of a quick, massive payday is what lured many of them to this life. You have just forced them to be practical, to be strategists, and it tastes less sweet than rum and coin. As you watch them transfer the goods, you catch the first mate's eye. He gives you a look of profound respect, an acknowledgement that you chose the difficult path of a true commander
over the easy one of a popular friend. You have secured the future of your ship and crew at the cost of their immediate happiness. This careful balancing of need against desire, of long-term survival against short-term gratification, has now become the true measure of your command. The moment your boots touch the solid ground of the pirate haven, a wall of sound and smell hits you. The steady ringing clang of a blacksmith's hammer provides a rhythm to the chaos, a constant beat beneath the shouting of merchants and the off-key singing pouring from the open doorways of a dozen taverns. You pull the brim of your hat down a little, a reflex against the brightness and the sheer number of eyes that watch you walk down the muddy street. Here, a captain's reputation is everything, and yours, the new captain of the Sea Serpent, is a fresh and untested coin. Whether you arrived with a hold full of a merchant's goods to sell, or with a grumbling crew needing immediate provisioning after a long journey, the goal is the same: to turn your recent efforts into tangible strength for the next voyage.
This need for resources is what brings you to a crowded open-air market, where the sharp, almost sour smell of hot tar being used to patch a nearby hull is so strong it makes the back of your throat itch. The scent is cut by the greasy, savory aroma of a whole pig turning on a spit, its skin crackling over a fire pit. Your quartermaster is already deep in a heated negotiation, arguing over the price of new sailcloth with a merchant whose face is a mask of disinterest. The process is slow, a dance of offers and insults that is as much a part of the port as the tides. You leave him to it, knowing his skill in these matters is why the crew elected him. Meanwhile, your first mate oversees the most critical repairs to the Sea Serpent, ensuring the new timber is sound and the rigging is properly mended. The work must be done well, for a weakness found in a storm or a battle is a death sentence. As you move through the throng, you find a moment of relative quiet near a cooper's workshop. The clean scent of shaved wood, a pleasant change from the port's other smells. It is here that you overhear the whispers. Two old sailors, their faces like cracked leather, are speaking in low tones, but their words catch your ear. The yearly transport, 2 galleons, heavy with silver from the mines. Your body goes still. It is the kind of prize that pirates dream of, the sort of score that can set a crew up for life. The sailors mention a route, a likely time, and then one of them glances in your direction. His eyes, small and hard, seem to look right through you before he and his companion fall silent and shuffle away. The information hangs in the space between you, a tangible thing, heavy with possibility and danger. The thought of that silver makes your heart beat a little faster, a frantic rhythm against your ribs. A prize like that would cement your authority beyond any question. It would make you a legend. You carry this dangerous knowledge back toward the taverns, the sounds of celebration and argument seeming to fade as you weigh the immense opportunity. It is inside the largest of these establishments, a sprawling wooden building filled with smoke and noise, that you see them. On the far side of the room, surrounded by a crew of the most hardened-looking sailors you have ever seen, sits another captain. You know them by reputation alone,
a captain known for their ruthlessness, for taking prizes against impossible odds, and for leaving no one alive to tell the tale. It is a chilling confirmation of the whispers when you hear their booming laugh and see them toast a new venture, the Spanish silver transport. They are already in port, their ship larger and more heavily armed than yours. The realization is a cold weight in your gut. They have the same information you do. Later, as you sit with your senior officers around a rough-hewn table, the quartermaster leans forward, his eyes alight with ambition. "We should join them," he says, his voice a low hiss to be heard over the tavern's noise. "Our two ships together? The Spanish wouldn't have a prayer. We would be unstoppable. Think of the shares for the crew. They would follow you to the gates of hell after a prize like that." His argument is practical, a simple calculation of force. He speaks for the crew's hunger, for the desire for a swift, overwhelming victory that leaves no room for doubt. However, after the quartermaster has left to secure more supplies, your first mate places his tankard down with a heavy thud. He waits until you meet his gaze, his scarred face serious. "That captain is a snake," he says, his voice flat and certain. "They are famous for it. They'll agree to an alliance, use our ship to draw the fire of the warship escort, and while we're being torn to splinters, they will take the galleons for themselves. If we survive, they'll sink us to avoid sharing the prize. There is no honor in them." His warning is a stark contrast to the quartermaster's confident plan. He speaks not of numbers and guns, but of character and betrayal, of the unwritten codes that separate a pirate crew from a pack of wolves. The choice settles upon you, as heavy as a warship's anchor. On one hand, you have the logic of strength in numbers, the almost certain victory that an alliance would bring. The silver is so close, you can almost feel the cold weight of it in your hands. A successful partnership would make you rich and famous in a single stroke. Yet, the first mate's words have the grim ring of truth to them. The image of the sea serpent being battered by cannon fire while your supposed ally sails away with the prize is a vivid and terrifying one. To trust this other captain is to place your ship and the lives of your entire crew into the hands of a known traitor. You find yourself torn between two very different kinds of risk. There is the risk of the battlefield, of facing a Spanish warship and 2 galleons with only your own crew. The odds are long, perhaps impossibly so. But then there is the risk of the handshake, the quiet danger of a knife in the back when you least expect it. Which is the greater folly? To trust in your own strength against a powerful enemy, or to trust in the word of a rival who has every reason to betray you? How does a captain lead? By seizing every possible advantage, no matter the source? Or by trusting only those who have already earned it, even if it means walking a harder, more dangerous path? The harsh mix of sounds from the port town seems to fade into a dull roar in your ears. All you can hear is the conflict inside you. The potential reward is a song of glory, wealth, and power, a tune that could define your entire life. The potential betrayal is a quiet, discordant note beneath it, a warning of a final, fatal mistake. You look from the determined face of your quartermaster, who sees only the prize, to the steady, cautious gaze of your first mate, who sees only the trap. Their conflicting advice pulls you in two directions, but the final command must come from you. You must decide whether to hunt as part of a pack or to stalk your prey alone. After a long moment, the path forward becomes clear in your mind, a decision forged in the fire of this internal debate. You push your chair back from the table, the scraping sound loud in the sudden clarity of your thoughts. You will either seek out the other captain to propose an alliance, a handshake over rum that could seal your fortune or your doom, or you will gather your own officers to begin plotting a course that will let you strike the Spanish convoy alone, trusting in your own cunning over another's word. You have stepped into a game of ambition and betrayal, and the rules are far older than your own command. The days at sea drift into a familiar rhythm, a pattern of sun and salt that seeps into your very bones. The warmth of the deck planks soaks through the soles of your boots, a constant, steady heat from below. There is a tension aboard the Sea Serpent, a quiet hum of anticipation that has replaced the easy grumbling of the past. Every sailor polishes their cutlass with a little more care. Every knot in the rigging is checked and double-checked. They know, just as you do, that you are not merely sailing, you are hunting. The prize you seek is the kind that turns a captain into a legend, and the weight of that potential glory rests heavily on your shoulders. It is a shared feeling, an unspoken understanding that passes between you and the crew with every glance. This feeling sharpens when you remember the port and the choice you made there. If you chose to form an alliance, the sight of your partner's ship, the Reaper's Fortune, sailing a few hundred yards off your port side is a constant reminder of your gamble. Its captain is a known killer, but their ship is fast and their crew is vicious, a fact that is both a comfort and a threat. You watch their movements, trying to read their intentions in the set of their sails. If you chose to sail alone, the emptiness of the sea around you is both a liberation and a burden. The entire prize would be yours, but the entire risk is yours as well. Every creak of your own ship feels louder in the profound quiet, a solitary hunter in an immense and dangerous wilderness. The call comes like a crack of lightning on a clear day, a sharp cry from the lookout perched high in the crow's nest. Sail ho! 2 galleons, Spanish colors, with a warship for an escort. A thrill, cold and sharp, runs through you. This is it. You raise your spyglass, the brass cool against your skin, and bring the distant shapes into focus. The 2 merchant ships are heavy and low in the water, their hulls bulging with what can only be a fortune in silver. Between them and you sails their guard dog, a Spanish frigate, a sleek and fast warship built for exactly this kind of fight. Its lines are predatory, and even from this distance, you can see the rows of cannon ports like teeth in a predator's snarl. Immediately, the situation becomes a storm of possibilities. Your first mate stands beside you, his knuckles white as he grips the rail.
The quartermaster is already on the main deck, his voice a low growl as he relays the news to the crew, their responding cheer a hungry, dangerous sound. If you are allied, a series of colored flags snaps up the mast of the Reaper's Fortune. Your navigator quickly translates. They signal a direct charge. He intends to rush the warship head-on while we swing around to hit the galleons. The plan is reckless, almost suicidal. A direct assault would expose your ally to the frigate's full broadside, the simultaneous firing of all cannons on one side of a ship, and would likely cripple them, leaving you to face the warship alone. On the other hand, if you are competing against your rival, you see their ship, the Sea Devil, already making its move far ahead of you. They are charging in, just as the Allied captain signaled, a bold and foolish assault aimed straight at the Spanish frigate. The warship turns to meet them, its attention completely focused on this immediate threat. As the first puffs of smoke blossom from their cannons, you see it, a moment of pure opportunity. While the two warships are locked in their deadly dance, the two silver-laden galleons are momentarily distracted, their crews watching the battle unfold. They are vulnerable, but only for a moment. The chaos of your rival's attack has created a perfect opening for a swift and decisive strike.
You find yourself torn. Your ambition screams at you to seize the fortune that lies just over the horizon, a prize that could set you and your crew up for life. It is the reason you took this ship, the reason these men follow you. Yet, the duty to protect your people is a cold, heavy anchor in your gut. If allied, to follow your partner's insane plan is to honor your word, but it will cost you dearly in men and material. To propose your own, more cautious plan, perhaps using your ship as a lure to draw the warship away, risks the alliance itself. Your partner might see it as cowardice, or worse, a trick to cheat them of their share. The fragile trust you bought in that chaotic port would shatter. By contrast, if competing, the internal struggle is just as sharp. You could charge into the confusion, a second predator joining the fray, and try to snatch one of the galleons while the Sea Devil and the Spanish frigate tear each other apart. The glory would be immense, a story told in every tavern. However, a safer path presents itself. You could hang back, staying out of range, and wait. Battles like this often produce a weakened straggler, a damaged ship trying to flee. To pick off such a target would be far less glorious, a jackal's tactic rather than a lion's, but it would almost certainly save the lives of your crew. Your gaze shifts from the vulnerable galleons to the faces of your men, their eyes fixed on you, waiting for the command that will define their fate. After a moment that feels like an eternity, your mind is made. The debate within you ceases. You lower the spyglass, the decision settling in your chest with the weight of cold iron. You turn to the helmsman, your voice clear and steady over the nervous energy crackling across the deck. You give the order. The ship responds instantly, the wheel turning, the sails shifting as the crew leaps into action. The Sea Serpent surges forward, committed to the path you have chosen, a path that leads directly into the heart of the fire. The world around you dissolves into a harsh mix of sounds. The first broadside from the Spanish frigate, is not just a noise. It is a physical force that hits your ship like a giant's fist. The percussive thump of the cannons firing vibrates through the deck, up through your boots, and into the very bones of your skull. You hear the horrifying scream of cannonballs tearing through the air, followed by the catastrophic splintering of wood as a shot finds its mark on a nearby mast. Shards of timber the size of a man's arm fly across the deck. The sharp whip crack of musket fire joins the chorus as men on all ships begin to exchange shots. You pull a cloth over your mouth and nose, but it does little to stop the overpowering presence of gunpowder. The smoke is so dense it stings your eyes, making the chaos of the battle a blurry, nightmarish scene. You can taste it on your tongue, a bitter, chemical tang that coats your throat and makes you want to cough. Salt spray from near misses lashes your face, mixing with the grime and smoke. A sailor near you shouts a warning, but his words are swallowed by the deafening roar of your own cannons answering the Spanish challenge. The deck lurches violently as the guns recoil, a controlled earthquake beneath your feet. This is the reality of naval combat, a truth far from the glorious tales sung in shanties. It is not a graceful ballet of ships, but a brutal, close-range brawl defined by noise, fear, and confusion. Historians would later debate the effectiveness of various pirate tactics, arguing whether reckless aggression or cunning patience yielded better results. But here, in this moment, there are no theories. There is only the thunder of the guns, the splintering of your ship, and the shouts of your crew as they fight for their lives and for the silver that lies just beyond the smoke. Your orders are shouted until your throat is raw, relayed from man to man in the brief, heart-stopping quiet between cannon volleys. Every decision is a gamble, every turn of the wheel a potential disaster. You see the faces of your crew, grim with determination, their movements economical and practiced as they sponge the hot cannons, load the heavy iron balls, and fire again and again. They move with a desperate efficiency, a trust in you and in each other that was forged in the quiet days leading up to this moment. Whether their trust is well placed will be decided in the next few minutes. The brutal symphony of the battle, a deafening opera of wood, iron, and human cries, now lives in your memory. The final cannon shot has faded, its echo swallowed by the vastness of the sea. An unnatural quiet now blankets the sea serpent, broken only by the low groans of the wounded and the rhythmic slosh of water against the hull. You stand on the quarterdeck, your boots sticking to planks that are slick with a dark mix of seawater and blood. Your crew moves with a weary purpose, coiling ropes, clearing debris, and tending to their own. The splintered rail where a Spanish cannonball struck is a jagged wound in the side of your ship, a stark reminder of how close this victory came to being a disaster. Below, the captured Spanish galleon, its mast shattered and its sails in tatters, wallows in the swell, a broken prize tethered to your stern. The overwhelming roar of the battle has been replaced by the quiet, personal accounting of its cost. This sense of accounting follows you down into your cabin. The quartermaster is already there, waiting for you by the main table. He closes the door behind you, and the sounds from the deck become a dull murmur, distant and unimportant. Here, in the confines of this small wooden room, the next battle will be fought. He is a man elected by the crew to ensure fairness, and his expression is not triumphant, but serious, his gaze steady. He gestures to a heavy sea chest that some of the crew have hauled inside. Its lid is thrown open, and even in the dim light of the swaying lantern, the contents give off a soft, pale glow. This is what the fighting was for, the reason men bled and died on the deck just a few feet above your head. You reach into the chest and pick up a single bar of silver. The weight of it surprises you, a dense and solid thing that feels heavier than it looks. The metal is cool and smooth against your palm, stamped with the unfamiliar coat of arms of a Spanish king. A small part of the victory finally feels real, tangible in your hand. The air in the cabin is close, carrying the scent of the celebration that has already begun among the crew. The sharp, sweet smell of rum spilled from a breached cask, its sticky residue making a dark ring on the surface of your chart table. It mixes with the faint, metallic scent of blood that seems to have seeped into the very wood of the ship itself, an odor that will take days to fade. The articles must be honored, the quartermaster says, his voice low and even. His words cut through your thoughts. The articles are the pirate code, the set of rules you all agreed to and signed your mark upon before ever leaving port. They are the only law you have out here. 1 share for every man, he continues, 2 for the captain and myself, 1.5 shares for the officers, extra for those who lost a limb or an eye. He is not asking, he is reminding you of the oath that binds this company of outcasts together. It is this code, he implies without saying it, that separates you from the tyranny of a Navy ship, where a captain's word is absolute and a common sailor's life is cheap.
Just as he finishes speaking, a sharp knock sounds at the cabin door before it swings open. 3 men stand there, framed in the doorway, blocking the light. You recognize them as the leaders of the boarding party, the first men over the rail of the Spanish galleon. One has a fresh, blood-soaked bandage wrapped crudely around his forearm. Another still has his boarding axe tucked into his belt, its edge dark. They do not wait to be invited in. "Captain," their leader says, his eyes ignoring the quartermaster and fixing on you. "We, who took the ship, demand a double share. We bled for this silver. The gunners and the riggers did their part, but we faced their swords." You feel the atmosphere in the cabin shift, the celebratory warmth of the spilled rum replaced by a sudden, sharp tension. You are torn. The quartermaster's argument is the foundation of your authority. The code is meant to ensure that every man, from the powder monkey to the helmsman, feels he has a stake in the venture. To break it would be to tell the majority of your crew that their lives and their labor are worth less than that of a few skilled fighters.
It could breed a resentment that would fester below decks, a poison that could lead to whispers and then to knives in the dark. The unity of the sea serpent depends on the idea that you are all in this together, and the shares are the proof of that promise. On the other hand, the fighter's demand holds a brutal logic you cannot ignore. You watched them yourself, a whirlwind of violence and courage on the Spanish deck. They did take the greatest risk. Rewarding their ferocity would send a clear message that exceptional bravery earns exceptional rewards. It would secure the loyalty of the most dangerous men on your ship, binding them to you not just by a code, but by the promise of wealth. In this world, the respect of killers is a currency as valuable as silver. To be seen as a captain who rewards strength and results, rather than one who hides behind rules, could be the very thing that forges your reputation and guarantees future success. This decision feels heavier than any tactical choice you made in the heat of battle. Then the enemy was clear, their intentions obvious. Now your crew looks to you, their loyalties divided. You imagine the faces of the men swabbing the decks, their hands raw from the ropes, hearing that the boarders got twice their share. You can almost feel their quiet anger. Then you imagine refusing these three men, and you see the cold contempt in their eyes. Your command, which felt so absolute while you were shouting orders over the roar of cannons, now feels like a fragile thing, easily broken by the weight of so much silver. The silence stretches, thick and heavy. The quartermaster waits, his hand resting on the ship's articles lying on the table. The fighters wait, their posture a challenge. You find yourself torn between the promise of a fair society that binds the crew as one, and the pragmatic need to reward the brutal effectiveness of your best warriors. It is a choice between principle and power. After what feels like an eternity, you slowly place the silver ingot back into the chest. The soft clink of metal against metal is the only sound. You look directly at the leader of the boarding party, your decision made. The code will be honored. 1 share for every man, as sworn. A small, almost invisible wave of relief washes over the quartermaster's features. He gives a slight nod, a sign of respect. The leader of the fighters, however, does not move. His eyes hold yours for a long moment, and you see no anger, only a cold and final judgment. Without a word, he turns, and his men follow him out of the cabin, closing the door firmly behind them. They did not get what they wanted. You are left alone with the quartermaster, the chest of silver, and the certain knowledge that you have just made powerful enemies among your own crew. You feel the immense weight of your command, heavier than all the silver in the hold, settle deep into your bones. Your name is now a currency in the Caribbean, traded in whispers from the taverns of Tortuga to the counting houses of Port Royal. Whether you are seen as a butcher or a legend depends entirely on who is telling the tale, a direct result of the bloody chaos you either commanded or narrowly escaped during the hunt for the Spanish silver. The sea serpent is anchored in a neutral port, a place where the flags of empires mean less than the weight of the coin in a man's purse. As you oversee repairs, you notice a change in how people watch you. There is a new kind of space around you on the crowded docks, a mixture of fear and respect that follows you like a shadow. This newfound reputation, earned in cannon smoke and splintered wood, is a heavy cloak to wear. It is in this new atmosphere of cautious regard that a man unlike any other in this port seeks you out. He is clean, his clothes are well mended, and he moves with a stiff purpose that marks him as a creature of authority, completely out of place among the sun-worn sailors and merchants. He does not shout for you, but waits patiently until your gaze falls upon him, then approaches, holding out a sealed letter. The wax is a deep, rich red, impressed with a coat of arms you recognize as belonging to the English governor of a nearby island. The man speaks in a quiet, formal tone, stating that his master requests a meeting, and offers a guarantee of safe passage under his own flag, a promise that feels both reassuring and deeply unsettling. The crew watches this exchange, their hands instinctively moving closer to their blades, their suspicion a low hum you can feel in the planks beneath your feet.
This promise of safety leads you, a day later, into a world you had almost forgotten. After being rowed ashore in a military longboat, you walk through streets that are clean and orderly, a stark contrast to the chaotic vibrancy of any pirate haven. Here there are no shouted deals or drunken brawls, only the quiet clip of horses' hooves on cobblestone and the polite murmur of conversation. The governor's residence is a grand stone building, and inside the air is still and cool. You feel a sudden urge to loosen your collar, the lack of a constant sea breeze making the room feel confining. A servant leads you to a large office, its walls lined with shelves of leather-bound books. The scent in the room is alien to you. It's a complex mix of beeswax used to polish the dark wood furniture and the dry, sweet smell of old paper. The governor himself is a man whose softness is a kind of armor. He is dressed in silks that would fetch a fortune on the black market, and a faint floral perfume surrounds him, a scent so out of place that it momentarily distracts you from his calculating eyes. He gestures for you to sit in a padded chair, but feels unnervingly comfortable, then pours 2 glasses of a pale golden wine from a crystal decanter. He pushes one across the polished surface of his desk toward you. You take it, the delicate stem of the glass feeling fragile in a hand accustomed to the heft of a cutlass hilt. He raises his own glass in a small toast. "To new opportunities," he says, his voice as smooth as the wine he serves. You take a sip. The taste is a shock to your system, a world away from the harsh, watered-down rum or grog that is the lifeblood of your crew. This liquid is light, with a sweetness like summer fruit, and a clean finish that leaves no bitter burn. It is the taste of wealth, of a life lived far from the grit and grime of the sea. As you lower the glass, the governor leans forward, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. He speaks of your reputation, mentioning details of your recent exploits that surprise you with their accuracy. He knows of your cunning, or your ferocity, and it is this very quality he wishes to purchase. He says the crown has a use for a captain of your particular talents. Then comes the offer, laid out on the desk between you like a treasure map to a different life. He offers a full royal pardon for you and every member of your crew. Your crimes, he explains, would be wiped from the record as if they never happened. You could walk freely in any English port, your name cleared. In exchange, you would accept a letter of marque, a formal document from the king that would transform the Sea Serpent from a pirate vessel into a privateer. He explains this would make you a legal hunter for the crown. Your attacks on Spanish and French shipping not only permitted but encouraged. Your first mission, he adds with a thin smile, would be to hunt down and destroy the very pirates who sail these waters, including the ruthless captain you may have once considered an ally or a rival. The words hang in the still air of the office. A pardon, legitimacy, an end to a life spent looking over your shoulder. A part of you, a part that is weary of the constant threat of the noose and the endless uncertainty of the next prize, feels a powerful pull toward this offer. The thought of sleeping through the night without a pistol by your hand, of seeing your family again, of simply being able to walk down a street without calculating every escape route, is a temptation stronger than any chest of gold. The comfort of this chair, the fine taste of the wine on your tongue, it is all a preview of the life he is selling. Yet another part of you recoils from the idea. You look at your own calloused hands against the fine polish of the governor's desk and see the gulf between these two worlds. Your crew signed on to the Sea Serpent to be free men, bound by their own code, not to be dogs of the English Navy sent to hunt their own kind. The black flag you fly is a symbol of defiance against kings and governors just like this one. To trade it for the king's colors feels like the deepest kind of betrayal, a surrender of the very soul of your existence. You find yourself torn between the gilded cage of a privateer and the perilous freedom of a pirate. The governor watches you, his expression unreadable, letting the silence press in on you. He knows the weight of what he has offered. He is not offering you treasure, but a different destiny. The decision rests on what you value more, the safety of the shore or the liberty of the open sea. It is a choice between who you are and who you could become. The scent of beeswax and old books feels like the scent of a tomb, or perhaps a sanctuary. In the quiet of this room, far from the creak of your ship and the roar of the waves, you must decide what the word freedom truly means to you. You think of your crew. If you won the great prize, they are rich and loyal, but would they follow you into the service of a king? If you lost and your command is fragile, perhaps this offer is the only thing that can save you from a mutiny born of desperation. The memory of their faces, some hardened by years of struggle, others still young and hungry for glory, flashes through your mind. You are their captain, and your choice is their fate
as much as it is your own. The wine in your glass has lost its appealing taste, now feeling thin and sour on your tongue. The silence stretches, broken only by the faint ticking of a large clock in the corner of the room. Each tick sounds like a hammer blow, forging the future. You can almost feel the physical weight of the two paths before you. One is paved, smooth, and leads to a comfortable manor house. The other is the wild, unpredictable sea, a path that could lead to a throne of driftwood or the bottom of the ocean. You drain the last of the wine from your glass, the act feeling final, and set the crystal down on the polished wood with a soft click that echoes in the stillness. You meet the governor's gaze, your mind made up.
As you walk away from the grand residence, the familiar smells of the port below, the sharp, honest scent of tar and salt, the aroma of roasting fish greet you like an old friend or a ghost of a life you are leaving behind. The sun makes you squint after the dim light of the governor's office, and the raucous sounds of the harbor are either a welcome song of freedom or a harsh reminder of the chaos you have chosen to embrace or escape. The path back to the sea serpent seems longer than the one that brought you here, every step taking you further into the future you have just selected. Your choice, made in the quiet of that perfumed room, has now set your course upon the great, unwritten chart of power and rebellion. Whether you accepted the governor's pardon or spat on the offer, the consequences now follow you across the water. If you sail as a privateer, a hunter of your own kind, you feel the weight of the king's commission like a gilded chain. If you sail as a declared enemy, the open sea no longer feels like freedom, but like a vast, empty room with nowhere left to hide. Your crew senses this shift in their captain. They work with a new tension, their eyes scanning the horizon not just for prizes, but for the sails of the Royal Navy or the unfamiliar flags of pirate hunters. This new reality, this choice between a leash and a noose, defines every league the sea serpent travels, a constant, unspoken presence in the background of every decision you make. As the day wears on, you begin to notice a change that has nothing to do with naval patrols. The endless blue of the sky softens, then shifts to a strange, unsettling shade of pale green, like bruised fruit. The wind, your constant companion and engine, falters and then dies completely. The sea, usually a shifting landscape of peaks and troughs, becomes unnaturally calm, its surface as smooth and reflective as polished glass. Seabirds, which normally wheel and cry overhead, have vanished. A profound silence descends, broken only by the rhythmic creak of the ship's timbers, a sound that now seems jarringly loud in the eerie stillness. You feel a strange pressure building in your ears, a physical sensation that makes your jaw ache. This unnatural calm spreads a quiet dread across the deck. The usual rough jokes and shouted orders of the crew die away, replaced by low murmurs and anxious glances toward the strange sky. Men who have spent their entire lives on the water stop what they are doing, their faces etched with a deep, instinctual worry. Your first mate approaches, his scarred face grim.
He doesn't need to speak. You both recognize the signs. He just nods toward the horizon, a silent confirmation of the fear that is now a living thing aboard the ship. The air itself feels wrong, and with every breath, your lungs seem to work harder, your breathing growing shallow, as if the world is holding its breath. Your navigator soon confirms it all, appearing on the quarterdeck with his charts held tight in his hand. His knuckles are white. He speaks in a low, urgent voice, his words precise and devoid of hope. He points to the dead calm, the greenish sky, the unnatural pressure your own body is feeling. It is a hurricane, he says, a great storm of immense power, and it is bearing down directly on your position. There is no outrunning it, no possibility of escape. There is only survival. The word hangs between you, small and fragile, against the immensity of the coming threat. The entire world seems to shrink to the wooden planks beneath your boots. He unrolls a chart on the capstan, the weighted top of the anchor winch, using a small stone to hold it against a non-existent breeze. He presents the first desperate option. You can run for the deep open ocean, turning the ship's stern to the approaching storm and sailing with it. His finger traces a line into the vast empty blue of the chart. Out there, he explains, there are no islands, no reefs, no land to be smashed against by the storm surge, the massive wall of water the hurricane pushes ahead of it. However, he continues, you would be utterly at its mercy, a tiny vessel tossed by waves larger than any you have ever seen, with the constant risk of being swamped and sent to the bottom by the sheer fury of the water.
Then, the navigator points to a spatter of small islands not far from your current course. This is the second option, a race for shelter. He speaks of a legend among sailors, the Hurricane Hole. It is a deep water cove, he explains, surrounded by high cliffs that could, in theory, break the power of the wind and offer a pocket of relative calm within the storm's heart. But the risk here is just as great. To reach such a place, you would have to navigate a maze of treacherous, sharp-toothed reefs, all while the sea is rising and the winds are making the ship nearly impossible to control. One mistake, one unseen rock, and the sea serpent would be torn to splinters long before the hurricane even reached its peak. You find yourself torn between two primal fears. The idea of the open ocean conjures an image of a slow, exhausting fight against endless mountains of water, a battle of attrition you could not possibly win. The thought of the islands, however, presents the terrifying possibility of a sudden, violent end. The horrifying crunch of the hull against coral, the screams of your crew lost in the roar of the surf. You trust your ship, the swift and sturdy Sea Serpent, which has seen you through cannon fire and desperate chases. Yet, what is the strength of wood and iron against the power of nature itself? This is not a tactical decision. It is a blind gamble, and the lives of every soul aboard are the stakes on the table. After a moment that stretches into an eternity, you make your choice. The decision settles within you, heavy and cold. You give the command to the helmsman,
your voice steady despite the frantic beating of your heart. Instantly, the frozen anxiety on the deck shatters into a frenzy of purposeful activity. Men scramble up the rigging to shorten sail, their bodies dark shapes against the sickly green sky. Others work to secure everything on deck, lashing down cannons, water barrels, and any loose gear that could become a deadly projectile. The time for fear is over. Now there is only work to be done, a desperate, organized race against the approaching storm.
The stillness does not last. The wind returns, not as a familiar friend, but as a stranger with malevolent intent. It begins as a low, mournful moan that seems to come from all directions at once. The glassy sea begins to move, not with waves, but with long, oily swells that lift the ship with a sickening, rolling motion. You feel the deck rise and fall beneath you, a slow, deep rhythm that promises a terrible violence to come. You grip the rail to steady yourself, your knuckles turning white, every nerve in your body screaming that something is profoundly wrong with the world. Without warning, the first massive wave strikes. It is unlike any wave you have ever experienced. It does not crash against the hull. It lifts the entire 200-ton vessel as if it were a child's toy, carrying you up a steep wall of dark water. For a heart-stopping moment, you are perched at the top of the world, looking down into a churning abyss. Then the ship plunges. The fall is a gut-wrenching drop that seems to go on forever, ending with a bone-jarring slam that throws you from your feet. You collide hard with the ship's wheel, the impact stealing the air from your lungs and sending a shock of pain through your ribs. The sky, once an eerie green, is now a turmoil of bruised purples and blacks, a ceiling of churning cloud so low it feels as though you could reach up and touch it. The low moan of the wind has risen to a high-pitched physical shriek, a sound that seems to vibrate deep inside your teeth and bones. Then the rain begins. It does not fall from above, but drives sideways, a horizontal blast of water propelled by the shrieking wind. Each drop is a tiny, hard projectile, stinging your exposed face and hands like a swarm of angry needles, making it impossible to keep your eyes open for more than a second at a time.
You manage to pull yourself back to your feet, finding a rope to tie yourself to the quarterdeck rail. To be swept overboard now would be to vanish without a trace. You shout orders, but the wind snatches the words from your mouth and shreds them into meaningless noise. Communication is reduced to desperate hand signals and shared instinctual knowledge of the ship. Through the sheets of stinging rain, you see your crew, their faces pale masks of terror and sheer animal determination. They cling to lines, moving with a desperate economy of motion, every man focused solely on the task that will keep them alive for the next minute and the minute after that. The world is reduced to a chaotic overload of sensation. The roar of the wind and the crashing sea merge into a single, continuous, deafening wall of sound that blocks out all thought. The taste of salt is constantly on your lips from the spray that blasts over the ship in unending waves.
Every muscle in your body burns with the strain of keeping your balance on a deck that heaves and drops without rhythm or reason. You are no longer a captain in command. You are just one more creature of flesh and blood clinging to a piece of wood, dwarfed by the awesome, indifferent fury of the storm. The memory of this primal fight, this battle against the sea itself, will forever haunt the timbers of your ship and the souls of your crew. The silence that follows the storm is a presence of its own, heavier than any cannonade. Days have passed since the sky tore itself apart, and the sea serpent is now beached in the curve of a hidden sandy bay. The process is called careening, where you deliberately ground your ship to scrape the hull clean of weeds and barnacles that slow it down. It is a vulnerable time, but after the hurricane, vulnerability feels like the new state of being. You run a hand over the ship's flank, your fingers tracing the gouges left by floating debris. The wood is a raw, pale white against the tarred black, like fresh scars on old skin. Around you, the crew moves with a slow, deliberate rhythm, their movements economical and tired. The constant shriek of the wind has been replaced by the rasp of scrapers against wood and the gentle lapping of waves on the shore.
This survival has changed you, and it has changed your standing. Having faced down the very wind and water, you are no longer just the captain who took the ship. You are the one who held it together when the world tried to pull it apart. The crew's eyes on you no longer hold calculation, but a kind of weary awe. Your authority is no longer a question. It is a fact, forged in the heart of the hurricane. This newfound certainty is a comfort, but it carries its own immense weight. Whether you sail under the governor's pardon or with a bounty on your head, the sea makes no distinction, and your crew now trusts you to navigate not just the waves, but their very fates. This trust is a heavier burden than any treasure, a responsibility that settles deep in your bones. That evening, you gather your senior officers in the captain's cabin. The room still feels wrong, tilted askew by the beached angle of the ship. A single lantern swings from a hook, its light sliding across the faces of the 3 people who form the core of your command. The first mate, his face grim as ever, leans against a wall. This survival has changed you, and it has changed your standing. Having faced down the very wind and water, you are no longer just the captain who took the ship. You are the one who held it together when the world tried to pull it apart. The crew's eyes on you no longer hold calculation, but a kind of weary awe. Your authority is no longer a question. It is a fact, forged in the heart of the hurricane. This newfound certainty is a comfort, but it carries its own immense weight. Whether you sail under the governor's pardon or with a bounty on your head, the sea makes no distinction, and your crew now trusts you to navigate not just the waves, but their very fates. This trust is a heavier burden than any treasure, a responsibility that settles deep in your bones. That evening, you gather your senior officers in the captain's cabin. The room still feels wrong, tilted askew by the beached angle of the ship. A single lantern swings from a hook, its light sliding across the faces of the 3 people who form the core of your command. The first mate, his face grim as ever, leans against a wall, his arms crossed. The quartermaster, eyes bright with an energy that seems to defy the crew's exhaustion, spreads a newly dried chart on your table.
The navigator stands apart, quiet and observant as always. There is enough plunder left from your last venture, and enough strength in the crew for one final great undertaking before the season turns, or your luck runs out completely. What that undertaking will be is the question that hangs in the still, warm space between you. The first mate speaks first, his voice low and steady. He gestures not to the chart, but in the general direction of the Spanish Main. He speaks of a fortified island, a place the Spanish call the Isle of Tears. It's a prison, he explains, filled with captured sailors, rebels, and pirates who weren't lucky enough to face a rope. His plan is simple and terrible. Attack the fortress, break the walls, and free the prisoners. There is no treasure there, no silver or silk, only death or glory. It offers no profit, he says, meeting your gaze directly. But it would make our name a light in the dark for 100 years. We would be more than pirates. We would be liberators. His words speak to a sense of duty, a loyalty, not just to the sea serpent, but to all who live the life.
Before the weight of that idea can fully settle, the quartermaster taps the chart with a decisive finger. "Glory is fine, but you can't eat it," he says, his voice filled with a restless excitement. He points to a small, wealthy colonial port, nestled in a well-protected harbor. Its defenses are old, designed to repel natives with spears, not a determined crew with cannons and cutlasses. "We don't raid it," he says, a grin spreading across his face. "We take it. We make it ours." He paints a picture of an independent kingdom, a pirate stronghold that would make you a monarch. It is a madly ambitious dream, a fantasy spoken of in drunken tavern tales. To attempt it would be to declare war on every navy in the world, ensuring a fight to the very end. This plan is pure ambition, a grasp for a power that no pirate has ever truly held. Following this grand declaration, the navigator's calm voice cuts through the heated vision of a pirate kingdom. They unroll a smaller, personal chart, its parchment soft with use. It does not show the Caribbean at all. Instead, it depicts a long, treacherous passage around the southern tip of the Americas. "There are other oceans," the navigator says simply. "The Spanish call it the Pacific. The East Indies are there, full of spices and goods, the likes of which this sea has never seen. The plan is one of ultimate escape. Sell the remaining plunder quietly, refit the ship for a long and difficult voyage, and simply disappear. Leave the navies, the governors, and the rivals behind. You would leave your legend to fade into myth, trading a name in shanties for a life of true freedom on a new horizon. It is a plan not of ambition or liberation, but of profound, lasting survival." After they lay out their visions, they leave you alone in the quiet of the cabin. The swinging lantern casts long, dancing shadows. You are left with 3 futures, 3 possible endings to the tale of the sea serpent. You lean forward, your hands flat on the large table, feeling the familiar grain of the wood beneath your palms. Your gaze falls on a deep, dark scar in the timber,
a mark left by a stray pistol ball during that frantic battle for the Spanish silver. For a moment, you can almost taste the gunpowder again, a bitter chemical tang on your tongue. The memory of that chaotic victory, the roar of the cannons vibrating through the deck, pulls you toward the quartermaster's vision. The ambition to seize a throne, to build something permanent from plunder and fear, feels like the ultimate prize. Then you close your eyes, and another memory surfaces, unbidden. You feel the ghost of the ship's wheel fighting you, straining against your grip, as a mountain of black water rose before you in the heart of the hurricane. The sound is what you remember most, not a roar, but a deep, world-ending moan that seemed to come from the planet itself. Your knuckles were white, your muscles screaming, your entire world reduced to a desperate struggle against an enemy you could never defeat, only endure. That memory of absolute terror, of being a small, fragile thing in the face of nature's fury, makes the navigator's plan feel like a drink of cool water after days of thirst. The thought of new stars, of unknown coastlines, and leaving this sea of blood and betrayal behind is a powerful lure. But there is another memory too. It is quieter. You remember the faces of your crew sharing a ration of water after your hold ran low. You remember the quiet nod from the first mate when you took command, a silent promise of loyalty. You think of the men you have lost, their lives spent for a share of treasure or a moment of glory. The first mate's plan offers a different kind of value. It offers meaning. To risk everything not for gold, but for the freedom of others. To turn your ship into a symbol of defiance. It feels like a way to wash the blood from the silver, to make the sacrifices count for something more than just your own reputation. It speaks to the part of you that knows this life is bound by a code, however rough, and a shared struggle against the so-called civilized world.
You find yourself torn between these three versions of yourself: the conqueror, the survivor, and the liberator. Each path reflects a piece of the journey that brought you to this moment. The captain who boldly took a merchant ship, the captain who shrewdly planned an attack on a convoy, the captain who stood firm against a mutinous whisper, or the governor's tempting offer. All of them reside within you. Now you must choose which one will define your end. This final choice is not about the next prize, but about the very nature of your soul. It is about the story that will be told when your name is spoken a century from now. Looking at the three charts, the quartermaster's map of conquest, the navigator's path to the unknown, and the invisible map of principle in your mind from the first mate, you see the faces of your crew. You see the splintered deck of the sea serpent and the endless waiting horizon. The choice clarifies in your mind, settling with a cold, hard certainty. You know what must be done. You know what kind of legend you will leave in your wake. Rising from your chair, you walk to the cabin door and open it, ready to give the order that will seal your fate and that of every soul aboard this ship. You have become the architect of your own final verse.
Summary. After surviving a hurricane and beaching the ship for repairs, you are presented with 3 distinct plans for your crew's final undertaking by your senior officers. Liberate a Spanish prison, establish a pirate kingdom, or disappear into the Pacific, forcing you to internally confront what kind of legacy you will leave behind. End state. You have made a definitive choice between becoming a liberator, a king, or a ghost, and are about to announce the final legacy-defining voyage to your crew. You stand on the quarterdeck, your boots planted firm on planks your crew painstakingly replaced after the hurricane tried to tear your world apart. The salt-crusted grain of the new wood feels unfamiliar beneath your feet, a constant reminder of how close you came to the end. Your crew is assembled on the main deck below, their faces turned up toward you. They are leaner now, their eyes holding the quiet watchfulness of those who have stared into the heart of a great storm and survived. The memory of the screaming wind and the gut-wrenching drop of the waves is a shared scar that has bound you all closer than any oath. They have followed you through chaos and now wait in this tense silence for the one thing that matters. You cleared your throat, the sound small against the vastness of the sea, and told them of the final choice you had made. You did not choose the path of the hero, to bleed for others in a noble but profitless fight. Nor did you choose the quiet escape of a ghost, fading into the mists of the unknown Pacific. Instead, you spoke of ambition. You spoke of a prize greater than any silver fleet, a treasure that could not be divided or spent, but could be held. You told them you would not simply be a pirate who raided the world. You would seize a piece of it and become a king. A stunned silence held the deck for a long moment, a stillness so profound you could hear the gentle lap of water against the hull. Then a slow grin spread across the quartermaster's face, followed by a low, rumbling cheer that grew until it was a roar of approval, a sound of men who had gambled their lives with you and were now ready to bet them all one final time.
The voyage that followed was unlike any other. Every action aboard the Sea Serpent was infused with a new, sharp-edged purpose. The daily routines continued, but the men moved with a predator's focus. The sounds of the ship changed. The usual shanties were replaced by the scrape of whetstones on cutlass blades and the low, intense murmur of men huddled over charts, planning the assault. The scent of cooking food mixed with the metallic odor of cleaned and oiled pistols. You spent your time on the quarterdeck, the navigator at your side, poring over the maps of a small, wealthy colonial port, a jewel of an island, rich from sugar and trade, but defended by a lazy, underfunded garrison. It was a prize ripe for the taking, and as you sailed closer, you could feel the tension coiling in every man aboard, a spring wound tight and ready to be released. The attack was a blur of calculated violence. You stormed the harbor at dawn, your guns firing before the town's watchtowers could even raise an alarm. The sound of your cannons was a brutal awakening, followed by the splintering crash of the sea gate giving way.
You were among the first over the side, your boots splashing in the shallow water of the docks as you led the charge. The fight was short and one-sided. The local militia, startled from their sleep, offered a brief, panicked resistance that crumbled into chaos. The sharp crack of your crew's muskets echoed between the fine stone buildings, a harsh mix of sounds that announced the end of one era and the violent beginning of another. By midday, the fighting was over, and the governor's flag was pulled down from the fort overlooking the bay. Standing in the governor's finely appointed office, the sudden quiet felt strange and unsettling. Your boots, still damp with seawater and grime, seemed to violate the plush, expensive carpet that covered the floor. Through the large glass windows, you could see the whole of the port spread out below. The harbor now filled by your ship, the Sea Serpent, looking both menacing and proud. The room smelled of beeswax used to polish the furniture, and a faint, sweet aroma of wine from a decanter left on a large mahogany desk. You ran a hand over the smooth, cool wood of the desk, a surface so different from the rough, weathered timber of your own ship. This was the feeling of power, of ownership. The entire town, its wealth, its people, its future, it was all now yours to command.
The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change as you solidified your rule. Your black flag, the coiled serpent on a field of night, was raised over the stone fort, a stark declaration to any passing ship that this was no longer a colonial outpost. It was a pirate stronghold, the heart of a new and defiant kingdom. Your crew, once bound only by the articles of your ship, became the new authority on the island. The first mate, with his instinct for order, organized the defenses. The quartermaster, with his sharp mind for logistics, oversaw the collection of tribute from the island's merchants, ensuring your new nation had a treasury. The town itself began to reflect its new masters. The taverns grew louder. The port became a haven for smugglers and other free-roaming crews, and a raw, untamed energy pulsed through the streets. Now you stand on the highest stone battlement of the fort, the place where the old governor used to take his evening walk. The stone is cool and solid beneath your boots, a feeling of permanence you have never known on the shifting deck of a ship. A steady wind from the sea whips at the hem of your coat, the same wind that once filled your sails, now snapping your own flag smartly above your head. You look down at the bustling port, a kingdom born of audacity and violence, and feel the immense weight of what you have built. It is a precarious throne, a nation of outcasts perched on the edge of the civilized world, and you are its undisputed ruler. This moment, this feeling of supreme, terrifying achievement, is what you have been chasing across all those blood-warm waters. It is then that the lookout's cry cuts through the afternoon quiet, a sharp, urgent shout from the watchtower. "Sail ho! Many sails!" You lift your spyglass to your eye, your heart giving a single hard thump against your ribs. On the brilliant blue horizon, they appear. First one, a small speck of white, then another and another, until the sea seems to be sprouting a forest of masts. They are not merchant ships, fat and slow. These are warships,
sleek and fast, their gun ports visible even from this distance as dark, grimacing mouths. You can make out the flags they fly, the cross of St. George for England, the gold and red of Spain, the blue and white of France. The navies of the old world, the empires you have defied, have put aside their own quarrels to unite against you. This moment, this feeling of supreme, terrifying achievement, is what you have been chasing across all those blood-warm waters. It is then that the lookout's cry cuts through the afternoon quiet, a sharp, urgent shout from the watchtower. "Sail ho! Many sails!" You lift your spyglass to your eye, your heart giving a single hard thump against your ribs. On the brilliant blue horizon, they appear. First one, a small speck of white, then another and another, until the sea seems to be sprouting a forest of masts. They are not merchant ships, fat and slow. These are warships, sleek and fast, their gun ports visible even from this distance as dark, grimacing mouths. You can make out the flags they fly, the cross of St. George for England, the gold and red of Spain, the blue and white of France. The navies of the old world, the empires you have defied, have put aside their own quarrels to unite against you.
The afternoon light catches the polished brass of their cannons, sending sharp, blinding glints across the water toward you. The sight is both beautiful and horrifying, a testament to the scale of the anger you have provoked. There is no fear in you, only a cold, clear understanding. This was always the price of wearing a crown, however small. You built a kingdom in defiance of the world, and now the world has come to take it back. This will be the final entry in your legend. Not just the pirate who took a port, but the king who dared to hold it against the combined might of empires. Your story will not end with a quiet escape or an anonymous death. It will conclude with the greatest siege the Caribbean has ever known. Your crew begins to gather on the battlements around you, their expressions not of panic, but of a fierce, resolute loyalty. The first mate stands at your shoulder, his earlier caution now burned away, replaced by the grim determination of a man facing his final fight. The quartermaster is already shouting orders, preparing for a defense of the greatest treasure you have ever taken. In their eyes, you see the reflection of your own journey. They have followed you from a shaky command to this impossible throne, and they will not abandon you now. This loyalty, forged through the shared trials of the sea and the terror of the hurricane, is the true foundation of your kingdom. A profound silence settles over the fortress, a quiet moment of anticipation that stretches across the water toward the approaching fleet. You can hear nothing but the wind and the distant cry of gulls. You lower your spyglass and turn to your master gunner, your voice calm and even, cutting through the tense air with the simple clarity of command. The world holds its breath, waiting. You give the order to prime the first cannon, its heavy muzzle swinging out to face the oncoming storm of ships. This is your legacy, to be written now in gunpowder and fire, in the roar of cannons and the crash of splintering wood. You grip the cold stone of the fortress wall,
a solid anchor in a world about to erupt, a feeling you hold onto as the first enemy cannon shot tears across the water toward your throne.
And so, our voyage as a Caribbean pirate ship captain concludes for the night. The charts have been rolled and stored, the logbook is closed, and the final, quiet watch is set. Imagine yourself in the captain's quarters, the gentle sway of your vessel a constant, comforting presence. The light from a single lantern casts a warm, soft glow on the wooden walls. Through the stern castle window, the sea is a vast expanse of deep indigo, touched only by the silver of a rising moon. Listen not to the clamor of the day, but to the quiet language of the ship at rest, the gentle strain of the anchor rope, the whisper of water against the hull. Your crew is asleep, their trust in you a silent, steadying force. Just as your ship finds its mooring in a calm, hidden cove, allow your mind to find its own peaceful harbor. Let the rhythmic rocking of the waves carry you away from the waking world. May your dreams be as boundless as the open sea. Rest well, Captain.